Ah, the environment, our precious planet that some states treat like a personal dumpster or outhouse. Pollution, deforestation, and laughably bad recycling habits are the trifecta of destruction. Today we're going to take a look at the top 10 offenders ranked from bad to are you kidding me levels. These are the states that the EPA seems to think are doing absolutely everything they can to destroy the natural environment and sicken its people. You know, the kind of states where you go to buy a house there and you ask if they've got an asbestos report and they're, oh, we don't do that here. Yes, real estate can be fun in some of these states. All right, so we're looking at the nastiest states. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Arkansas, the natural state of environmental neglect. Arkansas calls itself the natural state, but it's more ironic than accurate. The state's waterways are frequently plagued with agricultural runoff, with fertilizer and animal waste contributing to harmful algae blooms. The Buffalo River, a national treasure, has seen its fair share of pollution scares thanks to nearby hog farms. Yes, nothing like pink water flowing by your riverfront house. Deforestation is another issue, as logging operations and urban expansion slowly chip away at the state's lush forests. Nobody seems to really care at the state capital. Meanwhile, Arkansas's recycling efforts are minimal at best, and much of the state's waste still ends up at the landfills. Now, I will mention one thing. Just recently, if you notice, a lot of companies got away from using plastic bottles because a report came out and showed that of the bottles we'd been recycling for years, I forget the exact number, but only like 10% were recycled or could be recycled. So now everyone's going back to aluminum. Only took us, 50 years to figure that one out? But add in weak environmental regulations and an over-reliance on fossil fuels, and you've got a state that's not living up to its natural nickname. When it comes to industrial toxins, Arkansas is ranked 39th in the nation, and pollution, health risks, 29th. Number 9, Illinois, the prairie state of polluted potential. It's like a tongue twister. Illinois, where the iconic Chicago skyline is shrouded in smog and rivers that sometimes look more industrial than natural. By the way, I saw something on Twitter or X a couple years ago where a guy was trying to make a comment about how the Democrats are letting the rivers in Chicago just go green. And they showed a picture of St. Patrick's Day where they actually dye the river green. But the guy was all, I thought these people were all into saving the environment. Look at their river. Anyway, the state's industrial history has left behind a legacy of toxic waste sites and polluted waterways. The Chicago River has seen its fair share of chemical spills. And then you have, of course, them turning the river green for St. Patrick's Day, like I said. A fun tradition that highlights how normalized dumping stuff into the water has become. Coal-fired power plants and outdated infrastructure are keeping Illinois from fully embracing the renewable energy. And while Chicago boasts about its recycling program, the reality is much of the waste still ends up in the landfills. Talked about earlier, plastic is no good. Illinois may be the land of Lincoln, but its environmental policies are more about cutting corners than preserving the land. Industrial toxins, Illinois is ranked 35th, and pollution health risk, 40th. Basically, that means industrial toxins, what's their water like? What's their ground like? How toxic is it? And then pollution health risks kind of has to do with the water, the drinking water, but it really comes into play when you're talking about the air quality. Number 8, Kentucky. Bluegrass and black lungs. Kentucky's coal mining legacy is nothing short of disastrous. Strip mining has devastated the landscapes, and coal ash ponds are ticking time bombs for water contamination. The state's love affair with fossil fuels is matched only by its disdain for renewable energy. Kentucky's recycling efforts are abysmal, with many rural areas lacking any program at all. And don't get me started on Kentucky's deforestation rates, which are contributing to the habitat loss and soil erosion. Bluegrass may be their claim to fame, but black lungs and polluted streams are the reality. When it comes to industrial toxins, they're ranked 38th in the nation, and pollution health risk, 43rd. Number 7, Tennessee. The volunteer state of environmental vandalism. Tennessee may have a reputation for country music and Smoky Mountains, but behind the scenes, it's a state struggling with pollution and environmental mismanagement. Urban sprawl around cities like Memphis and Nashville have led to deforestation and increasing air pollution, while agricultural runoff has contributed to toxic algae blooms in their waterways. The state's reliance on coal-fired power plants and a hesitation to embrace renewable energies are dragging the state backwards. Add in lax enforcement of environmental regulations, and you've got rivers that are less scenic and more please don't touch. Recycling programs exist, but they're underfunded and undervalued, making Tennessee another state with a lot of work to do to clean up its act. When it comes to their industrial toxins, they're ranked 44th in the nation, and pollution health risks 39th. Number 6, Texas. Go big or go polluted, as they say in Texas. Texas doesn't just have big hats and big trucks. It's got big environmental problems. The state's obsession with oil and gas has left the air quality somewhere between choking hazard and lung crisis. With over 150 oil refineries, Texas is a fossil fuel party, and everyone's invited to suffer. Meanwhile, deforestation, not like they had a lot, but they are cutting back a lot of their scrub brush and, different things for, oil wells and cattle ranching. And it's transformed vast swaths of the state's landscape into barren wastelands. Add to the fact that Texas' regulated energy grid failed spectacularly in 2021, leaving millions freezing in their homes. And you've got a state that's literally playing with fire and ice. I know a few people that suffered through when their power out went during the winter. It was like one of the coldest days they'd had in forever. They said it was rough, and they kept trying to go down and buy one of those battery backups and stuff. You don't think you're ever going to need it in someplace like Texas. And the one person I know, they now have 2 in their house, just in case. Nobody wants to freeze to death in one of the country's warmest states, When it comes to industrial toxins, Texas is ranked 37th and pollution health risk 46th. Number 5, West Virginia. Wild, wonderful, and wrecked. Now, I know a lot of you thought West Virginia is going to be the top of the list. I did too, but one of their scores is not terribly bad. West Virginia's natural beauty is breathtaking until you see the mountaintop removal mining sites. This state has literally blown up their mountains to get to the coal, leaving behind barren wastelands and polluted waterways. Rivers run orange and communities suffer from chronic health issues. The state's renewable energy policies are practically non-existent, and their recycling program, let's just say it's not winning any awards. West Virginia may be wild and wonderful, but its environmental policies are wildly awful. Now, interesting thing about West Virginia, over the years, their pollution health risk has gone down a little bit. It was never like 50th or anything like that, but it's gone down because they don't have as many mining operations as they once had. They don't have a bunch of people, so they don't need a whole bunch of coal burning power plants, but their waterways and their soil, it's just trashed in most areas, or a lot of areas. I shouldn't say most. When you look at their industrial toxins, they're ranked 50th, absolutely bottom of the barrel, but their pollution health risk, only 34th. It's mainly because they just don't have a bunch of people. They don't have a lot of big industries that have, big old smokestacks shooting stuff into the air. Now, not saying coal mines don't, create their own problem, but they're not belching as much into the air as other industries. Number 4, Ohio, the Buckeye state of environmental buckpassing. Ohio may have not made the top 3, but it's certainly trying. With its legacy of industrial pollution and burning rivers, yes, I've talked about it before on this channel. If you don't know, the Cuyahoga River famously caught fire in 1969. I think they did it twice, but 1969 was the big one. Now, I'm not talking boats, which there were some that caught fire, and I'm not talking the piers and the buildings along the river. The actual water was so polluted, it ignited. Yes, now that was many years ago, but it's hard to live that one down. Ohio has earned its spot in environmental infamy. While the state has made some strides since then, obviously, I think everyone has, it still struggles with issues like toxic algae blooms in Lake Erie caused by agricultural runoff. Coal-fired power plants continue to dominate Ohio's energy landscape, and the state's effort to transition to renewable energies, it's been lukewarm at best. Recycling, a patchwork of systems with no real consistency, leaving many residents confused about what they can recycle and what they can't recycle. Ohio might not be at the bottom of the barrel, but it's definitely wading in polluted waters. Industrial toxins, they're ranked 46th in the nation, and pollution health risks, 44th. Number 3, Alabama. Sweet home toxic streams. Congratulations, Alabama. You beat Mississippi on a depressing list. Between coal ash spills, rampant deforestation, and non-existent recycling efforts, Alabama is an environmental nightmare. The state's lax regulations make it a haven for polluters, and their water quality is among the worst in the country. Alabama's reliance on fossil fuels and refusal to invest in renewable energy solidifies its position as the worst state for renters who care about the environment, or homeowners. There's actually a study in, I think it was renters.com I read, and Alabama's number 1 for renters that wouldn't rent in Alabama because of the environmental issues. I'm like, wow, that's kind of, who thought to make that list? I mean, just ask people, which state environmental stuff bothers you and you wouldn't move to? Just ask normal people. Why do you got to bring it down just to renters? But in Alabama, you add in frequent natural disasters, and you've got a state that's a bad roommate to the planet. Sweet home indeed. Add in frequent natural disasters, and you've got a state that's a bad roommate to the planet. Sweet home, Alabama. Industrial toxins, they're ranked 43rd, and pollution health risks, 50th. Number 2, Louisiana, the bayou of toxic waste. Louisiana's bayous might be beautiful, but they're also filled with industrial waste. Now, it's a lot to do with the swamp and stuff, but I've been to New Orleans a couple times the last few years, and on one of those, I was taking a cruise ship down the Mississippi out into the Gulf of Mexico, and that river stank. You know, there's the swamp smell and the, just slow-moving water smell. There's also something else in there that just had a, refinery smell to it. I grew up in Torrance, California. We had refineries everywhere, and I remember that smell when I was a kid. But yeah, I smelt it all on the cruise ship. It was kind of gross. Well, until we got out in the Gulf of Mexico, then it was better. The state is home to Cancer Alley, a stretch of the Mississippi River lined with petrochemical plants that have turned the area into a toxic nightmare. Residents' health? Not a priority. Hurricanes like Katrina and Ida exposed Louisiana's weak infrastructure and poor planning, but the state's leaders seem more focused on expanding oil refineries than protecting wetlands. The cherry on top? Horrible recycling. Louisiana's ranked 47th for industrial toxins and pollution health risk, 48th. All right, before we get to number 1, if you have not subscribed to this channel or our new one where we teach people how to, grow a YouTube channel from the very basics, we do video every single day, there's links for those in the description area below. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Indiana. Indiana, coal country chaos. Indiana loves coal, so much so that it's the state's largest source of electricity, despite the fact that coal plants are basically pollution factories. The air quality here is some of the worst in the nation, and the water quality, don't even think about drinking it, unless you own like 4 Brita filters and you want to run it through each one before you have a drink. The state's agricultural runoff has turned rivers into algae-filled cesspools, and the deforestation rate is alarming. Meanwhile, recycling programs are underfunded and undervalued, because why bother when you could just burn more coal? You'd think, and I don't know all the ins and outs of this, but I know that biofuel that comes from like corn and stuff, that state's got a lot of freaking corn. You'd think they'd tap into that. Anyway, industrial toxins, Indiana's ranked 49th in the nation. Pollution health risks, 49th in the nation also. Man. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, be nice to each other.